Welcome to A Woman's Clarity, a podcast that empowers financial professionals to better connect with and serve their female clients. Listen in as host Kirsten Schlumbohm, Vice President of Annuity Sales at C2P, and her guests help you speak the language of women clients and meet their unique financial needs and goals.
So, welcome to the first live forum for Women's Clarity. At C2P, we're very excited to kick this off with a special guest. But before I introduce our special guest, Sheryl, I do want to give a little background on what is a Women's Clarity. A Women's Clarity is a program with C2P to help educate female and male advisors with industry experts to help with that wave of retirement dollars that are coming down the pipeline. So we're here to help educate you, educate your clients, to work with female clients and do the best possible job you can. Now, that being said, I'm really excited to have our guest on today, Sheryl Hickerson. In 2022, I was in my home state of Iowa. Yes, I'm from Iowa, not far from Missouri. But I was talking with the other Sheryl that's widely known in the industry about my goal and dreams to help women develop in financial services as well as female clients. Sheryl Moore introduced me to Sheryl Hickerson, and ever since I've been a big fan of hers. So I am so excited to introduce Sheryl, who is the CEO of Females in Finance. She is a pioneer in the industry as an advocate for women in financial service and fintech. Females in Finance is a 3-time award-winning organization, and just recently, they won the Investment News 2024 award for DEI Organizational Effort of the Year. So without further ado, Sheryl, welcome to our first forum for Women's Clarity.
Thank you. I'm really excited and super honored that I'm here and get to spend some time with all of you as well. I'm excited to get to know you.
Well, I want to know, before we go into Females in Finance, since I am a fangirl and you are such a leader in the industry for helping females in finance and fintech, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, will you share your origin story? How did you get involved in financial services?
Yeah, you accidentally. When I was about 18, 19 years old, I grew up in Missouri, and I grew up in a pretty small town. And I remember telling my dad I was going to go off and do something really great. And I got into my Datsun 510 and I drove to California, and I had saved $1,000. I thought I was so rich. I was so poor in a second. And I needed a job. So I did what Christina Applegate did. I went into the local Kinko's, copied the resume straight out of the book, faxed it to the wrong number. And an insurance company actually called me and said, I think you're looking for something else, but would you like to come in? We're hiring. We're looking for someone. And I needed a job desperately. And I went in, and I have to tell you, I completely bombed and failed that particular interview, in the sense that they asked me things like, what do you know about insurance? And I said, my dad pays my car insurance. It was true. I'm very honest. I'm very transparent, as we all know already from the top of the call. And so, but I asked a lot of questions, and the gentleman who hired me, his name was Robert Brumby, is still my mentor to this very day. He's still my personal advisor to this very day, 30 some odd years later. And they gave me that job. It was for a marketing assistant role in an insurance marketing organization, much like what you're doing here, Kirsten. And I learned a lot. And what I found out during the time, I was the weirdo. When everybody would go home, I would still continue to sit there and read. Like, I actually read insurance policies. Like, what are we doing for these people? Like, what's going on here? And I would come in the next day and I'd have like 17 Post-it notes. Like, I have a question about this. I have a question about that. And what I loved was, years later, I asked Robert, as I progressed in my, in my work, I asked him, I said, why did you hire me? Because I was clearly not, prepared for this. And even in my interview. And Robert said to me, I hired you because I can teach you products. I can't teach you curiosity, and I can't teach you to be kind and care about people. And you had the things that we really needed. And so that really kind of spawned my lift from that. And then that led to, well, what else is out there that I can do? And it just continued on until paths crossed, like Stoyan and ours did, years later, into a role working at another organization. That job was actually extremely pivotal, because the role that I was in at that point was not very female friendly. It was quite opposite. And I realized that here I am raising girls, And I thought, and I have a son too, but I mean, I really was looking at my girls going home at night and I thought, this just got to be better. And so then I took a role with a very large organization from there, actually came in to run an account for them. And I kept saying to them, I think we should have a women's initiative. And so had this wonderful job. I had worked really hard for all these years. And I did the scariest thing ever. And I left that job and I invested in me. I put 100% on me that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see what I can do to hire, mentor, train, and advance more women. And honestly started it off with like a special interest group on Facebook. Okay. And thought a couple hundred women to kind of think I might not be completely nuts. Maybe this will work. And we are now 5 years later, an organization of 5,056 members, continue to grow every day. And I think we hit an artery because we're very unique in how we do that. And I'm privileged to be able to get up every day and do the work that I do because there's people such as yourself who are taking time right now in your life. You're exchanging these minutes to better yourselves, hopefully to better someone else out in the profession and just make this a space where more people want to come and join and be a part of it in whatever role they play. So that's kind of how we got here.
I'm going to point out two things. One, I can see why you and Stoyan are compatible because if you're a nerd for the word and reading the fine print on life insurance policies, you guys probably had some really amazing life insurance positioning conversations. And secondly, if you weren't looking to get into financial service or life insurance, what did you want to do when you grew up? Because a lot of us here are accidental tourists into financial services. Like Julie Manning just talked on the podcast. She was a gym teacher.
Yeah. That's funny. So I went to school at St. Louis University. I was going to go to school to become an infectious disease physician. I really liked puzzles and figuring things out. My father had Crohn's and my mother died when I was 39. She had lung cancer. And I was really interested in what that looked like. And I was really good, honestly, at science classes and things of that nature, the kind of I guess the nerdier of the classes or whatnot. But let me tell you, I went to SLU. Why? Because my dad paid for it. I applied at Mizzou. And my dad goes, that's a party school. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, no. So he offered if I paid, for my tuition to go to SLU, I could go there. But I got in there and I have to be honest with you, I'm just far too social. There was so much homework. And then I also ended up having a child during that time. So I was a single mom and I had a lot of responsibility and something had to give. And I remember looking at my little boy at the time. My son, Justin's almost 36, which is crazy when I look at him because he's still that little guy to me. But I remember looking and I thought something has to give and it can't be him. And so one of the things I want to say about that, though, because somebody's asked me like, oh, you sacrifice. And I said, do you know in all the years of my children's lives, I have never once said to them, I sacrifice something for them. Instead, I said, just changing your word to invest and use the word invest instead. I invested in my son. I invested in his future. I invested in his education. I invested in my time to have quality and quantity of time for him. And that has come back to break the chain of some things that have happened in my life and stuff. But we have such a good relationship too. So I always encourage people to maybe change the word from sacrifice to invest when it comes to things. I looked at the risk and chose what the reward was going to be for the risk. And that for me was it at the time. But I wanted to be an infectious disease physician.
Wow, that's it. Well, that's a big difference. But since we're talking about investment in oneself or investment in their children, you said that you struck out and invested in yourself. Is this where Females in Finance was birthed? And can you share how this started and where it's gone from beginning to where we are now?
Yeah, there's definitely evolutions. First of all, if you are on this call, I want to normalize something. If you're on this call and you're an employee, it is 100% okay today and forever to be an employee. Do not think for 1 second that anybody has to go and become an entrepreneur to be successful. Success is deemed by ourselves. I can't tell, Kirsten, she's successful. She has to feel it. It's an intrinsic thing. And nobody prepares anyone for entrepreneurship. I don't care who they are out there. Like you go into this and there's so many lessons you learn along the way from that. For me, though, I really did go down the path first of trying to look at, well, let me look at this organization, what they offer. No, that's not exactly what I want. Go down this no. And what I also found out along the way, if you look at entrepreneurs across the whole spectrum of them, a very large majority of them are somewhere on a neurodivergent spectrum in and of itself. Now, whether that's full on into autism and special needs and things of that nature is one thing, but I'm talking about ADD, ADHD, etc., dyslexia and things. We tend to, as entrepreneurs, build what's not out there for us or we can't find easily enough. And so when you go out there and you're working with business owners, it's highly probable that they fall somewhere in that space too. And so it's good for you to know those things. I did not know that because I kept trying to figure out like what made me, even I had to ask myself, Kirsten, I'm like, why did I do this? Because there is, I call it the entrepreneurial rabbit hole. There's a moment where you're going down and the point of no return, like you're further going in than coming back out. And you have to just keep going. And then your spouse or your significant other, your children, whoever supports you in your life, I hope they look at you and say, if it's really, truly meant to be, no, you're not. Get up and go do it again. Get up and go do it again. I had I had the fortitude and the fortune to have somebody in my life who would look at me and say, you would be a terrible employee now. No, that can't happen, and that is what led me into now building into this, though. I really had to lean on people who knew more than I did. And I had to be not afraid to go and back, ask them, hey, I need your help. Hey, I need your help to understand this. Do you know that more often than not, I don't care who it was from, Aaron Klein is one of my business mentors. I'm his mentee. I remember coming to him and thinking, hey, I like you and you're a smart person. Would you help me? Yeah, absolutely. Adam Holt from Asset Man, one of he's one of my business mentors. I spend time with him. But I went and I did the scary thing, which was to knock on the door, ask for the help, and then commit to doing the work. No matter what it was that they told me to do, even if it included sitting on a mountain in Georgia for 7 days with 32 strangers I've never met and wind and rain. And if you knew me, I'm only outdoorsy and I like wine on the patio outdoorsy. Okay. But I went and I did this to stretch myself, to push myself as far as I could, because it really did equal what entrepreneurship was. And now today, every time when something's hard, I'm like, it's not as hard as sitting in a icky mountain in Georgia in the rain, in the cold. I can do this. And that was a piece of advice I was given by someone. And, interesting, you brought up Sheryl Moore. Sheryl Moore is one of my mentors. I mean, she's one of the people that I leaned on during that time and said, ironically, I get a lot of her mail because my name used to be Cheryl Brown and then Sheryl Moore. And sometimes people send me things and I forward it to her. And I'm like, Cheryl, this one's for you. But she is one of the people. So being not afraid to ask people to help you, that I cannot stress enough. That's really what got me through and into building maybe today the largest organization for women in financial services. I'm not sure. I don't really keep track of it like that.
May I ask a question as you're
Certainly.
starting to build into the females in finance? Because we do have a diverse crew on this call. Let's define females in finance because the name might be deceiving. Who is females in finance for at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, females in finance is for anyone who wants to make financial services more welcoming and inclusive. And I'm going to talk about the word inclusive in a second, but bringing more women into and what I call the seamless second, which is DEB. I don't usually use I, and I'll tell you in a moment why not. EB, which is diversity, equity, and belonging. Those individuals, because I actually hired an actuary, a gentleman in Iowa. We're talking about. I hired an actuary to do the numbers of how many people do we personally, each of you on here, whether it's Brittany or Jordan or Victoria, Desiree, all of it, how many do you each have to sponsor to be in financial services for us to have homeostasis, to have just balance, to grow, and then to lift? Okay. And in order for each of us just to maintain homeostasis today, you each have to be responsible for bringing in and keeping 3 people more than 7 years in our profession today. And I started taking a real look at myself. Did I actually do that? Did I bring somebody in to stay within a 7-year period? Did I sponsor them? I got to tell you, there's a lot of those years I didn't. I was so busy trying to survive and keep my seat at the table that I didn't have time to think about or worry about somebody else. Well, I'm at a position now where I can do that. Okay. So females in finance, when I built it, I'm always focused on women because they're almost always first and onlys. I'm the first woman to do this. I'm the only woman to do that. But then I look at what I call the seamless second, which is DEB, the diversity, equity, and belonging part, because so many women come to me. They might be a woman who's Black, a woman who's Black and gay, a woman who's Black and gay and speaks English as a second language. The list goes on. And so I wanted to create a space that she could see it, be it, And it didn't have to come at the cost of white men helping, because I think that the roles that they play in this work is very valuable. Many of them are mentors. When I talk to women, more often than not, I hear about the allyship stories. Like I jokingly, but not shared what was going on with how Stoyan and I connected. And he really helped me at a pivotal point in my life. And so that allyship is females in finance. So women, DEB, allies, we all need their help in the work that we're doing today.
You're talking about your male ally network, the MAN
Correct.
network within females in finance. I'm so glad you defined that, because a lot of times when people see females in finance, they're like, that's not for me, but this is for everyone, because together we don't move the needle to grow females in the financial service business. Together we can accomplish more. I know it's a cliche with a team mindset, but I really truly believe that the male ally network is a part of what we do, and we're very appreciative of the men that support us here at C2P as well as in the industry. So tell us more about your programs that you offer. You've got a program, or you define it as you.
Yeah. So going back really quick to what you just said about the allyship, because when I was in investment news, I did not expect to win the investment news DEI organizational effort of the year. I was there. I was also judged the event, and and I got to be honest with you, I was like strawberry shortcake bite when they're announcing, and they called my company. My husband, Daryl and Sheryl, we get all the time. Daryl jumped up, chair went flying back, and he's like, "You won." He was my biggest ally supporter and excited. And when I got up there on the stage, I said this, and this is how I want to justify that the allyship component of what's needed in financial services. I looked at the award and I said, DEI. I said, for everybody sitting in here, did you know a woman made you? And they all laughed. And I said, I'm being for real right now. So for every person sitting in here, a woman had to birth you, because that's how it works right now today. And another woman birthed her. And yet women are lumped into diversity. How is it possible we make all the people? I don't understand that. Like I'm mathematically trying to understand. And I said, don't worry, I'm keeping my award. Okay. But I am letting you know that women matter everywhere they go, and men matter because so many of them are giving back in good ways to women. And we need to find what the cadence, the flow is. So when I built Females in Finance, and I built this amazing place for people to come and feel safe, and they felt protected with their ideas and their thoughts and their imagination and things of that nature, I realized not everybody wanted to go through the front door of Females in Finance. To your point, Kirsten, like, I'm not a female. I don't know, however people look at that. So we started building and crafting different doors for people to open. We like to call them programships. They're programs within a membership. Okay, so we are membership oriented. And so the very first one we built was the Male Ally Network. MAN, that's what it stands for. But the male allies were really important because they came in and brought allyship and said, what do you need? How can I help? How can I be better? And what I learned from that, as you do this, I want you to look at your clients and look at the people you work with. What I'm not willing to do. I'm willing to help anybody, but let me tell you what I'm not willing to do. Something happened when I turned 50 and I got a little spicier, a little spicier. And I do occasionally get the ones who call me and say something that sounds a little bit, why do you people immediately, my guard goes, why do you people? What do you mean? You people? Well, you women. I'm like, let me tell you right now, I'm not the organization for you, because I don't refer to anyone in that manner. And I'm also not going to spin my wheels and try to help people who don't want to actually be helped. They're just being rhetorical, or think that they're funny. Because trust me, I've heard all of the jokes, because I do go to conferences and people come up and say things that are just absolutely crazy. But for the men who are, the 336 men who are on our platform today, thank you very much. I'm so proud of them. They bring so much to the table in the sense of, hey, did you hear about this job? Hey, I'll write you a referral for that. Hey, I'll introduce you to. Hey, I want to build a better organization, but in the right way. Can you help me? Those things are so valuable to financial services and financial technology long term. Once that successful programship got up and running, I realized I'm onto something. So then we secondarily built Unity. You can't have community without unity. And this is for our LGBTQ professionals and anyone who identifies in that spectrum. We are here to not only support them as professionals, but also for them to be allies, but also to teach us how we can be better when it comes to our clientele. How do we go out there and provide support and good financial planning and recommendations and such for co-blended families and the same-sex families and whatnot. That has been that was a fabulous program. Peggy Haslick runs that, which led to the very next one. As you can see, we'll have a pattern here that led into creating RISE. RISE is for our Black and Brown professionals and the specific needs of what they need, whether co-blending families, working with professionals.
Right now in the industry, compliance, I'll try to find the statistics so you can see the proof in the pudding, but we're under 20% of
Yeah. It
penetration
hasn't changed.
in-
16% is, and that's considered high still.
So a two-part question for you.
Mhm.
What do you see as the biggest obstacle for engaging women in financial service and fintech? And I'll ask the second part now too, so you can probably carry on to that. How do we help and grow, nurture more women in our industry? Because this
Yeah.
is a great place for females. I see the women on this. I see the men here too. This is a wonderful place. You can be an advisor. I'm not an advisor, but I'm in an opportunity where I get to help the advisors. There's so many ways to be a part of this industry, but yet we're not growing our numbers.
Yeah, we're not growing our numbers. And that first part of that question, I want to make sure I'm clear what you just asked. There was about engage. What are we doing to engage them differently?
How do we engage more women to
Yeah.
become members of the financial services community?
Okay, so the first things first. When I talk to a lot, and I talk to a lot of women, okay, I am not even shocked, but I was expecting it. A lot of times there are situations where women expect everybody to come. We know that there's a problem. Let's be, first of all, there's basically 5 A's of change to happen. We have to be aware that there's a problem. I think the awareness, they've done a good job of making everybody aware we have a problem, but we have to accept that there's a problem. Okay. If we don't fully accept it, and that goes both ways, by the way, it's the organizations who are hiring or the recruiters who are looking or those who are looking to go out and find a job or get into the field. We have to accept, hey, there's this problem. I'm aware, I accept it. But then we have to come in and adopt the principles, all right? And adopt the work. We have to adopt the ability to be able to get into this work. That means we learn from others. We emulate those who are doing it, okay? And then we adapt it to what we need, and then we amplify. If you can do those 5 A's, change can happen. Now, let me tell you where the rub comes, because it does every single time. We either have individuals who are waiting for everybody to come to them and they're going to come and fix the problem. And, there's a lot of different adages of things of like, hey, I helped teach you how to build the boat and I gave you the oars. You have to do the rowing to get out of the situation. So we do have we talk a lot about leaning into the problem as well. What can I be doing differently? If you can be honest with yourself too. I think that's another thing too, is if you're just not going to help change the problem, don't go out there and act like you're going to do it, because you're going to eventually be found out. We see it happen quite a bit. We know who they are, people who say that they're about this and then they're not. So just don't. I'd rather people just say like, hey, I'm not going to I'm 5 years from retiring. I'm not going to put anything into it. No problem. That's you. I mean, I'm not here to judge anyone. No one's a judger. But I do think in order to engage differently, you're going to have to realize that we have a problem, accept it, adopt, adapt, and amplify. Now, beyond that, I would really encourage every person today to take inventory tomorrow when you come in. Not tonight. It's too late. Get up in the morning fresh. And then I want you to really look at every person you speak to. I mean, really challenge yourself. And it's going to be hard. The person at the gas station when you're paying, for the person that you're getting the donut, the Starbucks, or whatever you're doing. Look at them. Really look at them. Is every person that you're dealing with look like you? Is every person you're talking to like you? Is every person that you are reaching out to, are they like you? Because if they are, that's part of the problem. We have to be able to change that up. And that's unconscious bias. Every single person has it. It's what keeps us safe. And that part is really hard. And it's a muscle, and you have to do it, and you have to do it. And I want to say this to everybody, for people who know me well. I have 3 children of my own. I have 2 children that I fostered and adopted along the way. I have 2 daughters that are half Middle Eastern. I have 1 daughter who's half black and white. I have 1 son who is black. And then we say, and Justin. And I'm telling you, as a family that is very co-blended, I still have an unconscious bias towards middle-aged white women. You would not think that maybe, but it just is what it is. And I recognize it. So I have to challenge myself And I have to make certain that I'm doing that, because in order for us to engage and build things differently, we have to do something different. One piece of it has to be different.
I appreciate that. I'm going to turn now, because we do have a lot of our advisors on this call, Sheryl. We know that over the next decade, there's going to be $30 trillion worth of money being handed down generationally.
Yeah.
Almost 50% of that is going to be handed to women. Since we do work with clients directly, male, females, advisors with female clients, we could have the best process in place. But for women, it's more than just a process. Can you help us shape that conversation with the client?
Yeah. So specific to insurance or any type of planning, this is how I describe it. And it tends to resonate really well, especially if you work with women or you're wanting to work with women. We're very emotionally driven. Transactional is a piece of it, but it's later on. How are you making me feel with this? Do I feel good with it? Right. And if you don't believe that's true, watch a woman walk through a store. She'll run her hands over paper, feels good. The pen feels good and how it writes. The clothing feels good. I touch my little grandchildren's faces because they're butter soft. The feeling is a very intrinsic part, in overgeneralizing, of course, but a very intrinsic part. So what I've described to people with financial planning or insurance or whatever it might be is this. Many people today have been in an elevator. I think by 2024, we've all done this, right? And I think it's interesting because, like at the Embassy Suites, you can watch the elevator go up and go down on the outside of it. And I've asked people before, if I put you in front of the elevator and it had a 1-pulley system and this one had a 6-pulley system, which one would you choose? Not one of you needs to work at Schindler Elevator. They're a builder of elevators, by the way. Not one of you has to work there to know that you're all going to, in a rhetoric manner, say 6. All right. Because 6 just seems better. It's got to be better. Right. And what I think is really interesting is this. I said, the person you love the most in the world, I ask women, who are they? They almost always, if they have children, say children. If not, it's going to be either a spouse, a mother, or whatever. They never choose themselves, by the way. Not once yet has a woman ever said, I love me the most. They always choose somebody else. And I said, you put them in front of that elevator, that's 1 or 6 pulley. Which one are you going to put them on? They're going to put them on the 6-pulley elevator system because in their mind, it's safer, right? And I said, do you know that 6-pulley elevator system? That's all that is your financial plan. I said, think about it like this. Your children, your family, they get in, they go up, and all of a sudden somebody gets hurt. Boop. Oh, is that a long-term care plan? Is that a disability plan? Is that an accidental death plan? Whatever it might be. Oh, somebody, your spouse died. Boop, that's one of them. The elevator's still going because remember, we've only popped 2 of the pulleys now. We still have 4 more, right? And that's going to keep going. Well, you're going to have insurance money to pay for that and cover that. So each one of them really is their longevity planning. One is their paycheck protection. One of them is, life, like what I consider long-term planning, which is their life insurance and stuff. It's living it's love insurance, if you will, even. Each one of those has a system, but you put those loved ones on an elevator and it's going to go up. I assure you that will resonate very clearly because they can watch them go. And they never put themselves on the elevator. They will literally stand behind and watch that elevator. And what your job is to remind them too, you also need to be on the elevator to protect and watch this continue to grow and go. There's a learning curve. So like, Kirsten, when you talked a second ago about, the problem, leaning into the problem, women don't lean into their planning nearly at a rate that the men do. That's not me making that up. That's numbers have proven that time and again, but it is our job. It's our due diligence in this space to remind them they matter. They financially matter. They have value and they need to get into the elevator. They need to get on the bus, whatever your analogy is there. Help the woman remember you also need to get on the bus too, or get on the elevator too. And I'm doing it every day. I assure you.
Well, I see one of my favorites on here, Lisa from Virginia, and she always talks about putting your oxygen mask on first. So we need to make sure the ladies that are in front of us are putting their oxygen mask on first. And what I hear you saying is because we do use a very simplified approach based on time segmented money is to use an analogy that you can spark that fire within that woman to understand why they need to be a part of the financial process.
Oh, yeah.
And getting them involved. And that's actually leaning into the person in front of you and watching their body language, listening to what they're saying and understanding their concerns, but providing them and actually setting the table that they want set for them, not what I want to set for them. I do have a question regarding marketing. Do you like, I know that you're not in front of the end client, you're in front of the financial service professionals. But when talking about marketing, do you feel like there's a different strategy to marketing towards women, high net worth women versus high net worth men? Or is it the same, or is it tweaking the language to make it more effective and efficient to get in front of the ladies?
Yeah. One thing that I have heard from the marketing professionals that are in our organization, we have quite a few of them who are members, and we talk about this pretty openly. And I've got a good marketing background, but I don't know where the idea came into play that everything needs to be like in cursive font and then a bold, I don't want that. I want it to be very plain. I want to be able to see what it is I'm getting. I want you to tell me what the end result is. Although verbose, when I'm actually reading, I wanted to get to the point, tell me in very simple terms what it is that I'm getting, where I'm going, what's going to be provided. And I think there's this misnomer that women need all of the, and people love to say like they pink it up. Like, I like that color, so don't take that away. But I do think we tend to over feminize some of the things that are out there when you really can just say it the way it needs to be said in the simplest of manners and get the point across. As you move up, and I found this to be more true with high net worth women, they're really to the point because they've got a million other things they're trying to do. And I also think too, when you get down, you have to understand what the pain points are between the different couples or women or, individuals, organizations, families or whatnot. Find their pain point at each of those levels, know them well. Know them well, so the moment that they say them, say, yeah, I can totally appreciate that, because the pain points are pretty overwhelming right now. When I was looking at some of the things that we were talking about this just a couple days ago with a couple of the members. And right now, like debt planning is a good example. There's a real push whenever we are in financial downtimes is when people really pay closer attention to their debt. We should be paying attention to it all the time. But they were talking at the FinWell 365 meeting about ways to lift their credit score, what that means. How do we, if we lift the score, why we need to be very observant about what our finance balances are, because that's when the banks come back and go, well, look at you, Brittany, doing such a good job, and that we're going to give you $2,500 more credit on your credit card. And teaching our clients how to be aware that is just a way to keep you into that debt trap, because that's what pays the bills all of the time. And so the money managers are great for the insurance advisors and the financial advisors to know, because then they can kind of offset that when they come into and say, I can't afford that insurance policy. Well, let's get you some debt, help. And so there's a lot of ways that they're working together in this space, but you just got to know those pain points between each of them and know them so well and just practice them.
Yeah, I love the comment. I know you love the color pink. I do too, but putting everything in pink and cursive font is not necessarily the way to attract women. We want to be educated. We want to know the process and the plan. I want to understand all the ingredients you're putting into my chocolate chip cookie, so I'm not biting into a raisin thinking it's a chocolate chip cookie. So I think it's really important that we use straightforward language, because if you're going to waste my time and talk circles around me, you're not going to get my business.
Exactly.
So I really do appreciate that. We are coming towards our time together, coming to an end. As we look to the future, Sheryl, and I know you are always forward thinking, what changes do you see happening in our industry, like for both financial services and financial tech or fintech?
Yeah, we're definitely in our BFI area. The behavioral finance is very, even though we all told you about it, women told everybody this 10, 15, 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden the guys were like, oh yeah, it is very real. So, but behavioral finance with clients, we need to put the behavioral finance on ourselves first. Really behaviorally look at ourselves and find out why we are the way we are and doing things the way we do them. Looking at the behavioral component, a good example, there are things that I do exceptionally well, and there's things I do not well. Females in Finance on our website and our member portal, we have an actual business analysis. We work with DNA Behavior out of Atlanta, and they will actually take, based on your answers, they'll come back and tell you what your financial style is. And if your financial style is not matching your client's financial style, you may not be speaking the same language. So that behavioral space, the more often that you can spend time in that, whether it's through your continuing education classes, looking for behavioral finance, looking for ways to better yourself and start getting right, whether it's going to therapy or working in groups. I will also tell you this too, looking at yourself more as an advisor, as Michael Kitces likes to say, versus an advisor, giving advice, providing community. I'm a huge community builder. If you're not looking at a space like this is a community right now, friends, we're all here together, spending this hour together. And I know it sounds very, I don't mean it to sound like romper room and like, oh, it's all, but it's really true. Bringing people together in a space is it's magical. They were just saying there's a book out called Bowling Alone, and I highly recommend it. Robert Lee Sutton, I believe, is the author of that book. But this idea of we have communities, but because we're not good at fostering and tending to the community, we're a bunch of loners. So I sit in this house all day by myself. So this actually gives me and fills my bucket with new faces and things that I've heard to go do. And I encourage you to do that too, instead of being alone. I realize that it sometimes feels good to be alone, but it's actually not good for us as human beings. So I would say spending time in behavioral finance more, okay, building out communities more, whatever that looks like for yourself, and then being really choosy about your time and pouring into yourself. Personal development will really get you, I think, long term where you're wanting to go professionally as a, whether it's, as a parent, as a coworker, as a professional of this industry, putting time and space into that, well spent. Do it sooner than later, because you don't want to wake up like me one day at 53 and go, that's what I do, because I thought that could have been so helpful when I was 28. I wish I had the okay to do those things earlier on. So I think it's really great what you do here, Kirsten, with all of this.
Well, thank you. You've been an inspiration. And you actually answered my last question I had for you. I was going to ask you if you could whisper to your younger self without changing your trajectory, what would you have told yourself?
Oh, it's the same answer. I can tell you right now, because that question was actually asked of me a few years back. And it's this: I was on a television program in New York, and the question came up, and I said, what could you tell your younger self? It would be this: be okay being uncomfortable, as long as you can, like sooner. If I had learned that sooner, and I'll give you an example. When you watch Elf and he tells the young lady, you're just singing in a store. She's like, I can't sing. He's like, I'm singing in a store. That we have to teach our kids, teach ourselves to be the singer in the store by ourselves for very long periods of time, because eventually someone will hear the song and they will come stand next to you and say, sing with you. And then another person, I want to sing with you too, because this is fun. We don't teach people how to be in the discomfort for long periods of time. And that really is life. We have to learn how to be uncomfortable. So that'd be the one thing that would change, that I would whisper out, is to teach people how to be uncomfortable for a little bit longer so that your people can find you.
So back to my big sister's advice, get comfortable getting uncomfortable so that you can do the things you want to do. For those of you on here, if you have not got already, go to femalesinfinance.com. You can learn more about Sheryl and the programs that they offer. Sheryl, it's always a delight. You always bring a source of energy that lifts me up, that gets me through the day. Thank you for being here. And for everybody on, thank you for joining our first live event. If there's a topic you want us to cover, or you have ideas for a woman's clarity, reach out. It does not matter if you are a female or a male. All insights are welcome. So thank you for being on today. And whatever you do today, get comfortable getting uncomfortable. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for tuning in to A Woman's Clarity, brought to you by C2P, an organization whose purpose is to educate, train, grow, and support holistic financial advisors so families can achieve true prosperity. Subscribe now and never miss an opportunity to learn how to become a more proactive, holistic advisor to the fast-growing female client base. Visit c2penterprises.com to learn how we can help support and enhance your business. At the time of delivery and any subsequent publishing, information was deemed reliable but is subject to change by the time of listening or viewing. The contents of this piece include options and projections of C2P, are subject to change, and are for informational purposes only. The information provided in this presentation is not intended to be individual investment, tax, or legal advice.